to stand in a stream. Recognize the part of us that is stable, secure, changeless. And recognize all that around us that is constantly changing. And we are back with another reflection on the daily Vedantic. Did you know the word India, originally it was called not too long ago Hindustan, and Hindu is a mispronunciation of the Sanskrit word Sindhu, which means river. Hindustan, and the word India coming from Hindustan. Hindustan, stan meaning land. I believe it's Persian. So you have river land for Hindustan. India coming from the Indus River. Indus also stemming from Sindhu, mispronunciation of Sindhu. So Indus River would be Indus, it would be river. And India coming from that. So you have this land named for the word that signifies river. Riverland. The actual translation of Hindustan would be riverland. And Hindus would be river people. But what is interesting about riverland is you have this contrast between that which is ever moving and that which is still, river and the land. This visual, as I started to think about Riverland, and this is me just talking shite, just like last episode on artificial intelligence. This is just James talking to a camera, talking to no one, philosophically, literally. But I found it fascinating to think of this name Riverland and the visual that came from it of being someone standing on land while in a river. Standing in a stream. Perhaps the central practical contribution of this philosophy of Vedanta. It's not the ultimate philosophical idea, but perhaps the most central contribution to our practical lives is that we have three equipments to navigate the world: a body, a mind, and an intellect. Go to episode 1 where I go into depth on them, but the difference between a mind and an intellect is it's often analogized to a river with strong banks. The mind is like a river, extremely powerful. And if you have really strong banks, you can build entire cities, entire civilizations on the banks of that river. If you have weak banks, that powerful mind and that powerful river runs amok, destroys the land around it, kills all the livestock. It's pure destruction. And that is what a powerful mind with no intellect is for all of us. When we let our mind, which is our feelings, our likes, our dislikes, our preferences, when we let it run the ship instead of our intellect, which is our discernment, our capacity to reason, to judge. Okay, I might prefer a third scoop of ice cream, but I'm not going to eat it. Oh my goodness. Last night I had way too much to eat. Couldn't sleep. Could barely sleep. Took me an hour to fall asleep last night. That was a lack of intellect, seeing, as is said in this philosophy, and I said a few episodes ago, that the intellect is defined as the capacity to see the end in the beginning. I couldn't see that, if I keep eating, then I'm not going to be able to sleep very well later tonight. And now I think I'm going to have that insight for a little while because I've learned from experience. But the intellect, and you might hear my wife and our little daughters playing in the backyard, in the background, you have this powerful mind that if you have really strong banks, really strong intellect. It's one of the greatest things that the earth, in terms of resources, has ever seen. But if you have this powerful mind paired with powerful banks, the powerful intellect, well, it can give rise to some of the greatest cities in the history of the world. It can sustain life for thousands of years. Profoundly valuable and useful. But to take this further, which I've never done in any of the episodes, the river, the mind, is always moving, always changing, always shifting. The banks stay strong and they stay still. The intellect is meant to affix to the higher, to stay in constant perspective of the higher, stuck, so to speak, on the higher. While the mind, while the world flows all around it. Riverland, standing in a stream. What a great visual for what we are called to do. To stand in a stream. Recognize the part of us that is stable, secure, changeless. And recognize all that around us that is constantly changing. It's a powerful visual to remind us what this philosophy says, which is to cultivate the identification with the changeless in the midst of constant change. To be in the world, but not of the world, as Christ said. Where the river and land meet. Where the changeless and constantly changing exist together. Finding our footing in our identification in that which never changes, while being in the midst of everything else that does. That is today's reflection on the Daily Vedantic. We'll see you next time.